Hi, everyone. This is Kat from the Men You Love to podcast. Welcome. I am here with Jake Rettenberger, and we actually recorded a podcast last week that didn't record properly because it was my fault. So, guess what? I get to sit down with him again and record two more episodes today, and I'm really excited about that. He is a higher purpose and wellness architect who helps people rebuild inner structure that's beyond life coaching. And I really, really love that approach because the architect part is about taking away and apart the, the the limiting beliefs and the patterns and the things that we don't need to make room for the new version of ourselves. And hi, Jake, welcome. I really love what you
Thank
do.
you.
I love your mindset. I'm a supporter. I'm so happy that you're in my men's group in the King's Academy. You're just
No, I
wonderful all
appreciate it.
around. Yeah,
No, I try. I'm just me. That's all I can do is be me.
he's so humble. Look at that. Yeah, so this is Groundhog Day for us. We get to do it all over again. But today we wanted to talk about the dark night of the soul. And for many people, this is, an event that is brought on by divorce, by grief, sudden death, an accident, illness in the family, or like illness with ourselves. And sometimes we go through a few of these. Like I've been through probably three or four major ones. But it's an event and it's a time and a night, a season that changes everything, that we are left alone, stripped of usually support systems, and we are in a situation where we have to choose. It's either us or like, this is it, this is the end, right? This is the end of the road. Like, we either just stay in this crap and God knows what happens to us, or we get up and we fix it and we go to work. So, Jake, what do you feel about that? Does that sound
It
accurate?
is, yes, exactly. Spot on. It was, over the last few years, I've had several, events where it's turned into that, and it's powerful. It's hard. It's very hard because everything that you thought you knew from the world becomes totally opposite of what you is real. You have all these masks you live with and you put on for survival as you grow up and just to fit in with society. And once all that's stripped away and you're left just with your thoughts by yourself and with nobody to talk to that understands it, it it is very scary, to say the least.
Yeah. It's humbling, and it really just brings you back to who you are at your core. And I think it's designed to be that way. It's designed for us to be in that place all alone. It often happens like when there's no one around. Like, we may have amazing families and support systems, but just that one event, no one's available, or we're alone, or we're stranded somewhere. And I think it's designed for us to literally be with ourselves and have to go inside so deep. And it is
Yeah.
hard. And there's some dark places in there. We have some rooms to which we haven't opened the door in a very long time, and some rooms that we even forgot were there. And it's like, we got to go inside and we got to look. Um, and yes, it's very difficult, but it's also, I think, the most rewarding journey. I think the people that have gone through this and have come out on the other side would not trade it for anything. And they often say that this is where the most of their growth happened, the most of their aha moments and realizations and their wisdom. It came from those hardest moments. And I fully agree with that. Like, I would not trade mine for anything.
Me
What
neither.
was your experience? Do you want to talk about your first one? Because I know
The
I
first
remember
one,
two distinctive ones for you.
yeah, I mean, there's been several,
Yes.
so just to give a little bit of background, I have a long history of being in trouble, growing up in school. I was a rebel. I didn't like school, didn't want to be in school. So I've had to learn some hard lessons, and I've, made some bad choices in my life that have led me down roads that have, not turned out so well for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just through those, it took me a long time to find the meaning in them and to actually be able to sit down, not from a victim standpoint, not from saying, oh, poor me, but actually to sit down and reflect on them and then go, oh, like, why didn't I look at it this way before? Because then, but hindsight's 2020, obviously. Can't change the past, so but we can reflect on the past and we can learn from our experiences. And I think that's what life's about. And that's what brought me to this point. So the last one, well, we'll start with the one before. I
Yeah, with
was
your
had
first.
just lost, yeah, I had just lost a pretty high impact job that I enjoyed, and I was forced to move to Vail, Colorado. Not forced, I mean forced me to move to Vail, Colorado. Like, that's horrible. But it was it was a job in maintenance, and I was had a employee housing that I was living in, and it was very lonely because I had just moved there. I didn't know anybody, so and I had been doing a lot of DMT, because I mean we'll talk about that at some other point. But I just felt like there was something there
Mhm.
with, I felt some weird connection, and just like some weird things started happening once I started to experiment with it. So I started using it in substitution for other things that I would be using normally. So I was sitting, it was New Year's Eve of 2024, and I was alone, of course, and I smoked DMT. Where I usually would have been an inanimate object, I was just suspended in animation. It was black. All of a sudden, this little sparkle came up in front of me and exploded to what, to me would be the Big Bang, the birth of the universe. And it was like a message, not in words, but like a message inside my head that,
Knowing,
I'm
yeah, right.
God, we are God, everybody's God, you've been everybody, you'll be everybody. And then I came out, and it was, I had chills. It was just because my background, I never had any beliefs outside of, what was scientific,
Mhm.
So if it didn't make sense to science, it didn't, I just thought we lived and we died. I didn't believe in anything outside of that, for most of my life. That changed my life. I mean, because it really opened my eyes to, like, what was, and I thought I was going crazy. Because then after that, I started to get like little, I guess, intuition, just, really direct messages that would stop me in my tracks. And I'd go, where is this coming from? I've seriously thought about checking into a mental hospital because I thought I was losing my mind.
But
I
it
thought
just
I was
opened
hearing
you up.
voices.
DMT just
It
opened you up.
it did, and that's the funny thing is, my awakening came because of drugs after, wasting my life with drugs. So
Hmm.
it's kind of a beautiful thing, and it shows that, it's possible for anybody, because, that we're not defined by our past. Every day is a new day to move on and do something new. And if we're worried about the past, then we're not in the present moment. If
Hmm.
we're worried about the future, the same. So we're creating friction by living in those places. If we're focused on what's in front of us, we see opportunities for growth, for whatever. The sky's the limit. So that was really the first, and that it stripped away everything that I knew, everything I was familiar with, friends, every conversation that normally I would have been able to engage in. They came empty. It was just like it no longer resonated with me on a soul level, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand the purpose of it. Well, why now at 42 years old am I going through this? So,
It's that integration period after an awakening or a dark night of the soul where nothing just makes sense. Like we talked about before, it's just like your life is different. You're now different. You require a different level of depth in your relationship. And it just sounds like you really tapped into the collective consciousness and the oneness and just opened up your spiritual side and your heart, and you're able to just start to fully live and embody these aspects of yourself that you were denying yourself or not noticing before, right? And that's huge. Like that's life changing. That just like wipes the rug from underneath your feet.
oh yeah. it gives me, I have goosebumps right now all over my body just because it was
It's
that
that beautiful.
powerful. Because it has changed my life. It truly has. Just in little bit over a year, my
Hmm.
life is totally different from what it was. And, the situations that I would chase, validation from other people, just with trying to fill that void that I had inside of me.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter anymore. I'm whole myself now, which is, that's the one thing that I can take from this that is probably my favorite part about it is I no longer have to have somebody to complete me. I'm complete myself. I'm
Beautiful.
comfortable sitting in my own thoughts for days, weeks, months if I had to. It doesn't matter anymore. Where before I was chasing relationships and friendships and stuff that weren't based on anything that had no depth whatsoever. They were just empty. They were surface level attractions to women, to, being in situations that were not necessarily healthy,
Yeah.
but I did it just to feel whole. And, the piece I was missing was that connection to myself.
And you were no
So,
longer seeking validation from an outside source. And isn't that fucking beautiful?
yeah,
Yeah.
it truly is because now, it makes it so easy to see situations that I don't want to even get myself into. It's like, no, I'm good.
For
You know,
sure.
I see the dynamics here and it's not worth it,
Yeah.
because then you start sacrificing what you believe in your core and what is truly important just to have relationship or friendship with somebody. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like sacrificing pieces of you just to have something. You're right.
Yeah,
It's not worth it. Do you want to talk about the second Dark Night of the Soul, like the second bigger one, or the
yeah,
second out of the rest of them
yeah,
that was very
yeah.
impactful?
I think the reason I want to touch this real quick, the reason that I think I was so open to this happening is just because I didn't have that noise. I didn't finish school. So last grade I finished was fifth grade.
Hmm.
So then I went to work. So I didn't have that. I didn't have organized religion pushed down my throat as a kid. My parents, not that they told me I couldn't, it just
Yeah.
was never an interest in me. So I didn't have those beliefs.
Hmm.
And then the biggest thing was about 8 years ago, I quit watching TV. So
Yeah.
I quit having that noise from the news or from, the society, TV shows or whatever. Just so it left me open to being able to see things from different perspectives without a narrative being pushed down my throat that, I would, now I can look at things more openly as more subjectively to, okay, I may not agree with this now, but there is part of it I think I could agree with. So I'm able to kind of work through that and find my own, meaning and stuff
Mhm.
that was really a big part of why I was able to come to this awakening because I just didn't have all those, you know,
Yeah, you didn't
cultural
have to like
norms
open
and
that jar and remove everything. There was room for like new wisdom and new knowledge and all this stuff to come in because you didn't have beliefs on some of these things before. You were like a clean slate.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
which
it's
is
so
beautiful for you to
beautiful.
distinguish.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it was totally organic the way that it
Mhm.
happened. It was not, I was not looking for it, trust me,
Yes.
you know, and through the few weeks after that and even up until about 6 months ago, I was wishing it would go away.
Mhm.
It was like, because at a certain point it's a lot to deal with
Yeah.
because it's almost essentially it's being reborn. I mean, you're born a new person and everything is so different. Your family relationships and all the dynamics that surround you that were just normal, they were just there, are no longer, you're like dissecting everything going, what the?
Yeah,
So,
and you gotta like bury the old person, right? As you're being
right.
reborn into this new version of yourself, you gotta say goodbye to a lot of shit and a lot of people and a lot of habits and places. And I hear you. It's a complete like turnaround. It's a new
Yeah.
identity. Yeah. So do you want to
So
mention your second one then? Yeah.
yeah, so I left my job at Vail probably about February,
Hmm.
and I moved back to the Denver area. And I'd moved in with this girl that we had, it wasn't a real serious relationship, but I enjoyed her company, and it worked out circumstantially for the time being.
Yeah.
So I'm living with her, and then things got a little bit more serious, and um, I came to realize that it was serious on my end because then yet again I was trying to fill a void.
Hmm.
So I was trying to fill it with her and unhealthy. And it ended up ending very abruptly. So I packed up my car and I left. I drove away from her house and my car started on fire with everything I owned in it, of course. So here I am stuck, homeless. And because I lost my car, I lost my job because at that time I was doing door-to-door roofing sales.
Hmm.
So I couldn't get to work, so I lost my job. So here I'm homeless, jobless, and I got
Ew.
stuck with my sister up north of Fort Collins. So on the 4th of July, I was working on a guy's car and it or his truck and it broke down on the side of the road. So here I am sitting on the side of the interstate and I'm watching the fireworks go off. And I was just done, Honestly, I had thrown in the towel. I was like, I'm I just can't do this anymore. And maybe it's just time because not only all the things that had happened to me over the last month before that it culminated, just the whole dark night of the soul and just all the, things that I was going through and changes in myself. I just had enough. So I thought about, just wandering off and disappearing. And
Yeah.
something in me told me that, no. So the next morning, I made a couple calls and was able to find a place to go, thankfully. And my best friend, Mike, he was nice enough to say, hey, can you be ready in 5 hours? And I was like, I'm ready right now. Come pick me up because I'm not gonna, if I have to stay here any longer, I will not be here within a week. I'll guarantee it. I was at that point. And that was probably the biggest blessing that has ever happened to me, really, because once I got out of that area and was able to change, it was just fresh. Being in Arizona was a fresh outlook, fresh people, just everything was new. And I actually feel energetically, I
Yeah.
feel good here.
And you
I
were
wake up
new.
every morning,
Yeah.
just like I'm happy to be here. And it really pushed me to want to just totally changed my career track and everything that I was doing, because I've been in construction my whole life. So this is all to stop that and then to start going back to school and then deciding I want to be a coach and doing all this it's been very rewarding, but it's been not what I'm used to for sure.
Definitely a new path for you, Jake. But I mean, can I just say, I can imagine being in that, even the second one, you were like, this is bullshit, right? Like I'm going through this and it just won't stop. And and I know that my first dark night of the soul was when I was 33 and I had cancer. And everyone's like, oh, like you should be so grateful, like you came out of it. But I just like I wanted to not be here. I was just laying in that hospital bed and I was like, no, this is not for me. I'm like, can I check out, please? Um,
Right.
and I couldn't really share that with anyone. And I felt like, like, why me? Like, I'm so healthy and I do all these things. Like, why do I have to go through all of this? And then I needed radiation. So it was just like it dragged on this whole thing. Um, and then another one when I had kidney stones and I refused to take like the morphine for pain and I just lay there and I've had three children. But like the kidney stones, I mean, it was the most incredible pain I'd ever felt. And I was home alone and the room was dark and it was just like you find this place to go inside yourself. There's like a moment where it's just like it's all too much and you're overwhelmed and like you're like, why me, why me, why me? And then just like I can't describe it. It's just like a feeling of peace and surrender is how I would describe it. Is just like a surrender, like, okay, I'm here. Like this is for me. What something good and something really beautiful will come out of this. And so I've learned that after those two big ones, and the last one was a few years ago, that I came close to having more. But as soon as everything is falling again, I'm like, there's like a different approach for me. I'm like, okay, this is not meant to kill me. This is not meant to like make me miserable. This is meant to like help me rise and create something and build something more beautiful. And this is just taking apart all the things I no longer need. And there's like this trust now that I have in these processes and in these dark nights of the soul, that it's happening for me, not to me. And this is my growth, and this is what I need to go through. And it's just like another step in this evolution of my life. Do you feel like
Right.
you've changed a mindset where like you have this great life and like everything is great, but we know that life is not up here. Like this is life, right? It's continuously has its ups and downs, and like you're in this up right now. Do you feel like the next time you have a situation or a place where things are happening again, and hopefully not as drastic as before, that you're going to have this trust in the universe and yourself and this like surrender to say, you know what, like this is good. I'm glad this is happening because I know amazing things will come out of it.
Yeah, I am proof in concept because we haven't even discussed the third one
Okay.
that happened, and this would be November.
Okay.
I
So
had
recent.
another, what could have been it could have been a catastrophe for me if it was a year earlier, you know.
Okay. So having the other two has kind of prepared you and shifted your mindset. Okay. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I was living in Mojave Valley, not far from where I'm at in Lake Havasu City, and I had a job. Was working, I had a place to live, and I had some things happen, personal. I won't get into it because there's
Yeah.
some legal stuff
No, no,
behind
for
it.
sure. Say only what
But
you can.
so I ended up having to come back to Lake Havasu City, very abruptly, leaving my where I was living, leaving my
Mhm.
job, so essentially starting over once again. But it was okay because in October, shortly before this, is when I started working on my website and had decided to go back to school. So I'd already started to, apply for college loans and, doing all that stuff. So I was already putting in the framework of what, my next step was going to be anyway. So it, I think it bothered me for about 3 days what had happened. And then it was finally like, well, that was nothing compared to what you've been through. I mean, yeah, it was devastating. It was a loss of job, loss of home, loss of,
Yeah.
everything that I was familiar with at the time. But I don't think I really missed a beat, to be honest with
Wow.
you. And that's when I really was like, yeah, this is my path. It's through those dark times that we are forged into the people we're supposed to be. Some people aren't meant to live easy lives. I mean, it is, as unfair as it sounds, I just wasn't meant to live an easy life because obviously my purpose is greater than what I ever imagined it to be.
Yeah.
And without those experiences, I wouldn't be where I am. So I embrace them. I wouldn't change anything that I've ever been through, from prison to, what it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Is through those times we are forged in the fire. And
That's right. Thank you for saying that. And I feel exactly the same way. There is nothing that I could would go back and undo. And another thing that we talked about is I think when you're a coach and you're trying to help people get through a hard time, you're trying to empower them, you're trying to get them to see their divinity and maybe recognize some patterns and just basically be happier and live healthier lives. The stuff that you and me are teaching and that we're doing, we didn't learn in a book. And that's why it works. That's why when we tell our story, people are like, Well, I didn't have a cat in my life and I didn't have a Jake. So I had to do everything by myself because that is how I had to learn what it takes to get through a hard time, what it takes to find your strength, what it takes to fall in love with yourself and start treating yourself with love and respect, even though people in your past haven't always done that, right? It's how to
Oh
like
yeah,
make boundaries and do all these things. So it's everything I teach, I literally had to do by myself in the dark with no one helping me. And I think that's what makes you and me different is that we have this story and our wisdom. It's not just knowledge from a book. Yes, we have that as well. We educate ourselves, we stay on top of things, but we literally embody and we felt everything in our body and we did it ourselves. And so I feel like my mission now is to help people go through a transformation and improve their life without having to go through a dark night of the soul, without having to realize they have a diagnosis or someone has passed away or there's been an accident or something terrible has happened or they're like they're getting a divorce. It shouldn't have to take that for you to improve your life and improve yourself. And I feel like that's what you're also doing. We're both like alchemizing our pain and our experiences and reusing it to help other people not have to get to that dark place in order to be happier. I think is what I'm trying to do.
exactly. Yeah, it makes us relatable on a level that, a lot of, because I've made, a couple 100,000 and I've begged for change at McDonald's. So I'm relatable. Not only can I speak to different people, I don't judge. I've been there. So it makes it easier for me to approach a client or even just somebody on the streets with empathy and compassion that, as somebody who went to school for psychology or, has a degree
Mhm.
that has never had lived experiences they can't even touch it. And it's not that their heart is in a bad place.
Yeah.
They're coming from a place that is authentic to their mission, but they just don't have the experience to be able to do it in a manner where people relate to it.
Yeah, and it's not their
From
fault that they weren't like fucking homeless and then go through the
right.
shit that we went through. Like it's not their fault. Like good for them. However, they lack that embodied experience that only
Yeah.
comes when you felt it and you've been there.
Yeah. But coming from, I mean, I've done 45 days in rehab. I've done, I don't know how many hundred, literally probably 300 drug and alcohol classes in my life. And I could never relate to the counselor. It was never because it was always they learned from a book and had never even used drugs or anything. And it's like, how are you going to tell me how I'm supposed to get out of this when you've never been there? You've never lived what I've had to live through. And like you said, it's not their fault and it's
Mm,
not anything against them, but I just could never relate. So I know if if that was my case, that's got to be the case for a lot of people. And it's probably a lot of the reason that a lot of counseling doesn't work for people.
exactly. I agree 1,000%. I think that traditional therapy, I have clients that have been in traditional therapy for 20 years and they had one session with me and like they were like, you said things that I've never heard in 20 years. Not only that, but I released the trauma from their body energetically and from the fascia, from the tissue. And the health problem they had had for like 10 years literally went away because talking and cognitive understanding of your feelings and trauma and responses and all of that, that's great. That doesn't actually remove the trauma from your body, from your tissue, from your energy field. It's like it's very limited. And I feel like my approach is body, heart, mind, and soul. I look at the whole person because it takes that, a transformation on all four levels to actually create a new life for yourself and to let go of some of the things that are holding you back. So like I have a very holistic approach. And talking helps, but I think it has its limitations. And of course, like any other profession, some people are better than others. And some people I would even go as far as saying monetize on the fact that the longer they go and the less they uncover and the more they slow down the speed of unraveling these things and they kind of stay stuck on talking about the past, the longer they're going to have that person as a patient, and the more money they're going to make. And I've seen it happen. Like I've seen people talk about the same shit for years, and I'm like, what are you doing to change it? What skills have you learned in therapy? Like what's happened? And it's just nothing. It's just talking continuously about the same stuff. So again, that happens sometimes. It's not usually the case, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, some people learn different too, and some people are just not, until you're ready to ask the question, honestly, you're not going to listen to the answer. It doesn't matter where it's coming from,
Yeah.
So I even had counselors that had a little bit of lived experience, maybe not, but until I'm ready to make a change, you got to commit to change within and
Yeah.
be ready to do everything you can to, you know, implement the steps that it's going to take to do it. And it's not glamorous. It definitely is not glamorous because you have to really you have to go back and look at every thought pattern, every belief system that you grew up with, that you have held close to you for your whole life, and you have to dissect it and go, does this serve me anymore? No. Okay, I gotta get rid of that. What am I going to replace that with? What's my outlook on that now? And it's just totally retraining your brain to look at every scenario that you encounter, not only from a subjective point of view to where you're implementing your changes in what you want to, be as a person, but you also need to look at it from the standpoint that, you know, just I don't know what I'm trying to articulate here. Just
Is it the accountability piece where you
yeah,
have to you have to use radical honesty with yourself and be really
exactly.
truthful about the parts that you played in your own story. And I think
Right.
it's worth mentioning that all these beliefs that we're trying to uncover and these experiences that have shaped our perception and the filter through which we see the world, 90% of them are subconscious. So we don't even realize them. So that's where you're digging. Like that's literally the work is to uncover them. Once you
Right.
have the awareness, that's then it's like easier. It's the problem is to uncover them. Like I
Yeah.
think that's
It's
the hardest part.
it's recognizing the cycles that you have played over and over, replayed over and over in your life, and going, wait a minute, okay, this is the lesson I'm supposed to learn here, and until I learn this lesson, I'm going to keep on the
Repeating the
gerbil
same.
wheel, and I'm going to keep running around in circles
Yeah.
because what I'm doing is not working here.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do to move forward and get the lesson, retain it, and not only that, see it in my interactions going forward.
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, it makes it like we were talking about, it makes it easy to recognize relationships or something that isn't going to turn out very good. It's like you start to get it and it's like, oh, I get it, and then you don't even engage it, it's easy just to not even put yourself out there like that.
For sure. Once you see it, I say you cannot unsee it. Like it's done. That's it. And this is a perfect segue because I'm going to stop this episode here